chosen one. Before you were 5 years old, something happened. Not a single dramatic event that you can point to and say, that's when everything changed. No. What happened was quieter, more insidious, more devastating. Somewhere between your first breath and your 5th birthday, your soul fractured. Not because you were broken, but because parts of you were too powerful, too intense, too real for the world you were born into. And those parts? They didn't die. They went underground. Into your shadow. Where they've been waiting. Watching. Whispering. For decades. If you've ever wondered why you feel like you're carrying weight that isn't yours, why certain triggers send you into reactions that feel ancient, primal, beyond your control, why you can heal and heal and heal and still feel like something fundamental remains broken, this video will explain everything. I'm going to reveal the 3 shadow wounds that dark chosen ones carry from childhood. Not generic childhood trauma. Not what therapists typically address. I'm talking about the specific soul fractures that occur when a high-frequency being is born into a low-frequency environment. These wounds are so deep, so early, so foundational, that most dark chosen ones don't even know they're wounded. They think this weight is just who they are. It's not. And today, that changes. Before we go deeper, if you're new here, this channel is for dark chosen ones only. Those who carry both light and shadow. Those who integrate rather than transcend. Those who know that wholeness requires descending into darkness, not just ascending toward light. If that's you, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. And if this video resonates, comment "Shadow Child" below. Let me see how many of us are healing these ancient wounds together. Now, let's begin. Before I reveal the 3 wounds, you need to understand something crucial. Childhood wounding happens to everyone, but dark chosen ones experience it differently. Here's why. When a typical soul incarnates, they arrive calibrated to this density. The heaviness of 3D reality? Expected. The limitations of human consciousness? Anticipated. The conditional love of wounded parents? Painful, but manageable. But dark chosen ones? You didn't arrive calibrated to this density. You arrived remembering. Remembering unconditional love. Remembering sovereign existence. Remembering that you chose this mission. And then, you forgot. But your nervous system didn't. Your energy field didn't. Your shadow didn't. So, when wounding happened in childhood, it didn't just create trauma. It created exile. Parts of your original frequency, your power, your knowing, your darkness, were deemed unacceptable. And they were banished to the underworld of your psyche, where they've been fermenting, transforming, waiting for you to come find them. Dark chosen ones? Your unconscious isn't just personal memories and repressed emotions. It's soul fragments. Pieces of your original frequency that were too much for childhood to hold. And those fragments? They're the source of your greatest pain. and your greatest power. Chosen one, are you starting to understand why traditional therapy only takes you so far? Why you can process childhood memories and still feel fundamentally fragmented? It's because you're not just healing trauma. You're reclaiming exiled aspects of your soul. And that requires shadow work, not just inner child work. Now let me show you the 3 specific wounds. Shadow wound number 1. The intensity wound. This is the wound that says, "You are too much." Dark chosen ones. Think back. How many times in childhood were you told directly or indirectly that your emotions were too big? That your reactions were too dramatic? That your sensitivity was too intense? That your questions were too deep? That your knowing was too unsettling? Calm down. Stop being so sensitive. Why do you always have to make everything so serious? You're overreacting. It's not that deep. Every time you heard these messages, something happened in your shadow. Your intensity, which is actually your life force, your power, your frequency, learned that it wasn't safe to exist fully. So it went underground. And in its place, you developed a false self. A dimmed-down, palatable, acceptable version of you. The version that learned to shrink so others could feel comfortable. But here's what nobody told you. Your intensity didn't disappear. It just became shadow. And shadow intensity? It leaks out. In explosive anger that shocks even you. In overwhelming anxiety that seems to come from nowhere. In depression that feels like being crushed by your own unexpressed life force. In relationships where you either completely withdraw or completely overwhelm. The intensity wound creates a specific pattern. You oscillate between too much and not enough. Between explosion and implosion. Between flooding others with your energy and completely shutting down. Because you never learned that your intensity could exist in integrated form. That you could be powerful and present. Passionate and peaceful. Intense and intimate. Chosen one, if you've spent your life apologizing for being too much. If you've shrunk yourself in every room you've entered. If you've felt your own life force like a burden rather than a gift. This is wound number 1 speaking. And it's been running your life from the shadows. Until now. Shadow wound number 2. The knowing wound. This is the wound that says, what you perceive isn't real. Dark chosen ones are born knowing. As children, you knew when adults were lying. You knew when something was wrong in the house before anyone said anything. You knew the truth beneath the surface of every interaction. You felt the energy that everyone else pretended wasn't there. And what happened when you spoke what you knew? You're imagining things. That's not what's happening. Stop making things up. You're being paranoid. Everything is fine. When it wasn't. When you knew it wasn't. When every cell of your body was screaming the truth that the adults around you were desperately denying. This wound is devastating. Because it doesn't just silence your voice. It fractures your relationship with reality itself. Here's what happens. A child knows something is true. Every authority figure says it's not true. The child faces an impossible choice. Trust my own perception and be isolated, punished, gaslit, or abandon my own perception and belong. Most children choose belonging because survival requires attachment, and so the knowing goes into shadow. But it doesn't stop knowing. It just stops trusting. The knowing wound creates this pattern. You perceive truth, and then immediately doubt yourself. You receive intuitive hits, and then rationalize them away. You see through people's masks, and then gaslight yourself into ignoring what you see. You know something is wrong in a relationship, a job, a situation, and you stay anyway. Because you learned long ago that what you perceive isn't trustworthy. That the authority outside you is more reliable than the authority within. But chosen one, here's the truth. Your knowing was never wrong. You weren't imagining things. You weren't being paranoid. You weren't making it up. You were perceiving reality more accurately than the wounded adults who couldn't handle what you saw. And your shadow has been holding that knowing for you, until you were strong enough to reclaim it. That time is now. Shadow wound number 3. The darkness wound. This is the wound that says, your shadow makes you evil. This is the deepest wound. The one that most dark chosen ones carry without even knowing it's there. Because this wound doesn't just exile a part of you. It exiles your relationship with your own shadow. Here's how it forms. As a child, you had dark thoughts. Not because you were bad, because you were human. You felt rage when you were violated. You imagined revenge when you were hurt. You had impulses toward destruction, selfishness, cruelty. Every human has these thoughts. But dark chosen ones feel them more intensely. And often, those around you sensed your darkness and reacted with fear. What's wrong with you? Why would you think something like that? Good children don't feel that way. You need to pray that away. There's something dark in you. And they were right. There is something dark in you. But it's not evil. It's power. It's the part of you that can destroy what needs to be destroyed. Set boundaries without guilt. Walk away without looking back. Fight for yourself without apologizing. But when childhood taught you that this darkness was shameful, dangerous, proof that something was fundamentally wrong with you, you split. The darkness wound creates the deepest fracture of all. The fracture between you and your own shadow. This wound makes you fear your own power, sabotage yourself when you get close to success, attract dark situations you can't escape, project your shadow onto others, and then fight it there. Oscillate between spiritual bypassing and shadow possession. Because you never learned that your darkness isn't separate from your light. That your shadow isn't your enemy. That the parts of you that were called evil are actually your medicine. Chosen one, listen to me carefully. You are not too dark. You are not secretly evil. You are not one bad day away from becoming a monster. You are a whole being who was taught to fear your own wholeness. And your shadow? It doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to complete you. Now you know the 3 wounds. The intensity wound. You are too much. The knowing wound. What you perceive isn't real. The darkness wound. Your shadow makes you evil. But knowing isn't enough. You need to understand the cost of carrying these wounds unhealed. Because these aren't just psychological wounds. They're soul fractures that leak energy every single day. The intensity wound costs you your alaviefness, your passion, your fire, your capacity for deep joy. Because when you dim your intensity, you dim everything. The knowing wound costs you your sovereignty, your self-trust, your intuition, your ability to make decisions from inner authority. Because when you abandon your perception, you become dependent on external validation. The darkness wound costs you your power, your boundaries, your protection, your capacity to change what needs changing. Because when you exile your shadow, you exile your sword. Combined, these 3 wounds create a half-life. A dimmed existence where you're surviving but not thriving. Getting by but not becoming. Functioning but not flourishing. And the worst part? You think this is just who you are. You think the weight is permanent. The self-doubt is your personality. The fear of your own power is wisdom. It's not. It's wounds. And wounds can heal. So how do you heal these wounds? I'm going to give you 3 practices, 1 for each wound. These aren't quick fixes. They're doorways into deeper integration. Practice 1 for the intensity wound. Start expressing your full emotional range. In private first. Find a space where you can be completely alone. And let your intensity out without editing. Scream. Rage. Weep. Laugh until you can't breathe. Your intensity needs to know that it's allowed to exist, before it can learn to exist in integrated form with others. Practice 2 for the knowing wound. Start a What I Actually Know journal. Every day, write down 3 things you know to be true, that you've been doubting or dismissing. I know this relationship isn't healthy. I know my body needs rest. I know something is shifting in my life. You're rebuilding your relationship with your inner knowing. 1 acknowledged truth at a time. Practice 3 for the darkness wound. Have a conversation with your shadow. Sit in a quiet space. Close your eyes. And ask, Shadow, what have you been protecting for me since childhood? What power have you been holding until I was ready? Then listen. Write what comes. Your shadow has been waiting decades for you to ask. Chosen one. You've been carrying these wounds for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. The intensity wound that made you shrink. The knowing wound that made you doubt yourself. The darkness wound that made you fear your own power. But today, something shifts. Not because I gave you information, but because your shadow heard itself being named. And naming is the first step of integration. These wounds won't heal overnight. But they will heal. Because you're not just processing trauma anymore. You're reclaiming exiled parts of your original frequency. You're calling your soul fragments home, You're becoming whole. So I declare over you today, your intensity is your life force. Your knowing is your compass. Your darkness is your power. You are not too much. You are not crazy. You are not evil. You are a dark chosen one, who is finally waking up to your wholeness. And your shadow? It's celebrating. Because you came back for it. If this video illuminated something for you, like it now. If you want more shadow integration content specifically for dark chosen ones, subscribe and hit the bell. And comment Shadow Child below to let me know which wound hit deepest for you. I'll see you in the next video, chosen one. Your shadow is waiting, and so is your wholeness.